Hi, this is Norman's CV. Norman is a project manager, and for this review I'd really like to focus primarily on really the top half of the first page. For me, this is a crucial part of the CV where you give the recruiter or the person reviewing your CV enough information to really grab their attention and give them a reason to keep reading, really. Now, the first thing that really strikes me about this CV, apart from the fact it's laid out pretty well overall, is the quite long professional profile here, or some people call it a supporting statement or career objective. Whichever you've chosen doesn't really matter. In this instance, Norman's chosen to write a fairly long profile or statement. It must be around 15 or so lines. Now, for me, that's just too long. The risk is a recruiter or person reading the CV may just completely skip it because it looks quite imposing, or they may think that the person who they're reading the CV of maybe doesn't even know exactly what they're looking for themselves or what they can offer themselves. Sometimes the temptation is to try and include everything within this opening statement, whether it's just to hit keywords or because you're afraid of leaving something out. But the reality is this particular section here just needs to hit 3 key points. The first of which is just to say who you are. Are you a degree qualified project manager with 10 years experience managing multi-million-pound projects, for example? The second needs to say or answer the question why you're good or why you should be of interest to the person reading your CV. Now, this could be 2 or 3 select achievements that you think might be relevant, and you may want to tailor this to the job that you're applying for. And finally, why are you interested? What are you looking for, and why does that appeal to you? That helps, especially if it's tailored to a job you're applying for, that helps the recruiter know that you're really interested in what they've got to offer and you're the right person for them to be considering. So in summary, for this profile, I would try and cut it down to around 5 lines, 6 or 7 at a push, whether that's split over 2 paragraphs, doesn't matter too much. Definitely it needs to be cut down. Looking up a bit here, we've got a fairly standard way of displaying your personal details. Now, I think an address is obviously an address, likewise for a telephone number and an email. These things can all be included, but you don't need to label them. With address, I think it's becoming more common just to put the city or cities that you're interested in working in. At this point in the recruitment process, nobody needs to know your postal address, so that can be taken out. Now, this item here I've highlighted is a continuation of the profile or statement, and it's a career objective. So Norman's written a fairly short career objective statement. However, on review, it looks fairly generic. A new and challenging job opportunity which will utilise existing skills. That doesn't really say anything about the kind of role that you're looking for. That could be an opportunity for you to sell yourself into a particular position, and also, and crucially, make it a lot easier for the recruiter or hiring manager to know that you're interested in what they're offering, not just trying to see everything that's out there. So the following section we've got here, areas of expertise. Some people may call it a skills summary or any other title. Again, doesn't really matter too much. This is a really good place to summarize a few of your key points, and for a lot of people, especially those in more technical fields or scientific fields, it may be that you want to sort of squeeze a few keywords in here. Now, please don't just try and squeeze loads of acronyms or jargon in because it won't mean anything, but do use it as an opportunity to tailor your CV for particular roles. And sometimes this is the easiest place to do that, rather than fundamentally rewriting everything else on your CV. In this instance, there's some good examples there. It doesn't really go into a great deal of detail of the context of these achievements or these skills. In my opinion, these particular ones that Norman's chosen could be more easily embedded into the opening statements when it was tailored a bit more, leaving this for maybe key achievements, for example, or maybe some of the other technical skills he's got. These are fairly general items. They may not even all be relevant to a project management role. So do consider when you're writing your CV that really you want to not talk about everything, but the things that are most relevant to what you're looking for. So if we go slightly further down, so we're starting to now look at the most recent career entry in here. So the project manager at Biz Skills Academy. Just while I'm here, it's worth noting there's a slight formatting issue here. The bullet points are misaligned, and that can just look a little bit messy, so it's worth tidying things like that up. Also give some consideration to how you align your dates here, Norman. The risk here with just putting the years is, for example, you could have finished this role in January 2014 and started this in December 2015, which would mean essentially a 2-year gap between your two roles. Unfortunately, a lot of recruiters, a lot of hiring managers will probably assume the worst, and if that is the case, I would still encourage you to include the actual dates or months, and then give yourself a chance to explain why you may have been out of work, whether it was relocation or studying or other so on. Please do consider, expanding it rather than just using the years. Now, if you're going back more than 5 or 10 years, months aren't really important, but for recent roles, employers are looking for consistency, they're looking for continuity, so make sure that you display that if possible. So when considering the points that have been written here, to me, designing and managing and developing, they're all good things. They're all things that certainly fall within the scope of a project manager. However, what's missing here is the metrics. These are more responsibilities. These are things that you've been responsible for, rather than things that you've completed or achieved. So there's no metrics there. I would consider, if you've developed custom training materials, what were they? What was the impact of those materials? Was there improved performance? Have you managed budgets, for example? Have you delivered products that can have a tangible benefit? So consider, and this is really relevant for all of the positions in any CV, try where possible to quantify the achievements and to give some actual specific detail, relevant detail. We don't want to be drowning in numbers, but make sure it's quantified and helps give a little bit of extra weight to the achievement or the responsibility you're talking about. Moving on to the second point, I'm not going to go through all of the roles in great detail because we'd be here for too long. But the second position, obviously still very relevant. It's quite recent in the last few years and it's still a fairly prominent position on the CV. The same principles apply. There's a lot of responsibilities here, but not a huge amount of metrics. Now, we actually do have some metrics that they're talking about the funds that have been raised and so on, so that's good. It gives a little bit of weight and a bit of credence to the item. For me, bullet points shouldn't be 3 lines long. It should be a bit clearer, a bit shorter, a bit more succinct, so think about how that can be condensed down. It gives you space to include other things if nothing else. And likewise in the role here, the management consultant position, there's not a great deal of, except for this bit here, not a great deal of metrics or of measurable achievements. And likewise, some of these bullet points are a bit long and they probably don't hit the point as well as they could. Considering this is the sort of end of the first page, my opinion is I'm not entirely clear what you're looking for. Yes, it appears to be that you've moved into a project management role, you've got recent qualification there, but I don't think these positions really support the operational management or strategic management that you can offer and transfer into a project management role. They more talk about the general responsibilities you've had, which is fine to a degree, but I just think it could be fine-tuned a little bit more. You may want to consider some slight formatting changes. For example, if I just change this bit here, you can see how project manager then stands out a bit more, so you might want to just play with how you format the dates versus the job title versus the company and so on, just to make the eyes more attracted to the actual position that you're talking about. Here at the end of the first page we've got the footer. These are completely unnecessary in my opinion. Page numbers can be useful but not really required. Most CVs are viewed electronically, so no real need for that. And certainly no need for a continuation here with email and telephone number included. Again, we've already got those at the top of the CV. Nobody needs to read them at the bottom of the CV as well. So I'm just going to skim through to wrap this review up. I'm going to skim through the second page. We've changed the format here slightly of how the positions are written. So I think you've summarised 5 years into a single entry. I'm not sure whether that was with one company. Doesn't matter too much. This is going back 6 or 7 years now, or even up to 10 years, 12 years ago, and it probably isn't that relevant. But just consider the continuity and consistency aspect, whether you want to change the way that's written. You've also talked a lot about what the projects are. Here you've talked about the fact that you've conceived the project, but maybe talking too much about what the project was rather than what your role was and what you achieved during those projects. Standard education qualifications, logical place to put it, fairly standard, no major issues there. You may want to just be a bit more clear whether it's a bachelor's degree in arts or science and actually use the abbreviation. Sometimes that's used in search functions, for example, so just consider that there. A fairly long list of professional training and qualifications here. Possibly some of the older ones could be cut down. These are probably less relevant. You may want to focus more on the more recent things. Key skills and hobbies. I just don't see the relevance of this position. We've already we've already talked about the whole CV is covering your key skills. That's the point of a CV essentially. And you've got other sections where you've identified your kind of core skills, if you like. It doesn't really do anything from a search engine position to include these again. It doesn't work in the same way that Google might, for example. It will typically, in most platforms, will just find whether a particular phrase is included, yes or no. And frankly, personal opinion, but this item here, the hobbies piece, is just not relevant. Where I think that there is an exception is if you are for example, an IT developer and you take part in local conferences or local events as a volunteer, in terms of coordinating communities, I think that could be relevant. But for a project manager, knowing that you watch football, frankly, doesn't add anything to your CV. It certainly probably doesn't harm you. It's just taking up space where something more valuable could be. And just to wrap up, the statement references provided on request, absolutely not required on CVs. This will be a requirement if you're offered the job with most employers, but it's almost a given. I'm sure most job seekers won't refuse to give references, and it just doesn't add anything here. So I think that could be removed quite easily. In summary, not a bad start to the CV. It looks pretty nice. I'm sure when printed will be fine. I think we can just cut down some of these blocks of text and strengthen some of the core achievements within the CV to give it a bit more weight, and just give a bit of thought to how you're branding yourself. So here, clearly you want to move into more of a continuation of project management, and I think you could, customize areas like the areas of expertise, and most crucially the professional profile to be very specific about what you can bring to a project management role, why you'd be good at it, and what the specifics of that role you're looking for are. But Norman, a good start. I'm sure with an hour or two work here and there, and maybe some second opinions from others, you'll be well on your way. So wish you the best of luck, and thanks very much.